wouldn't it be easier if there was one standard that all AI assistant could use? So before MCP, every tool needed custom integration within the application. And suppose not just this, if on some day GitHub decides to change its API, then every integration of GitHub needs to be updated manually. And then this is the interesting one. So also we ask this in each of our interview to understand if a candidate says that they know about MCP. So we ask this particular question to understand whether they actually know about it or not. Most of the candidates could not answer this. Okay, so good morning everyone. Today I'm going to take a session on MCP, Model Context Protocol. So imagine a scenario where you have different applications like ChatGPT, Gemini, Cursor, Claude, every other AI agent, even your own AI agent. So like every one of them needs different integration for database access, GitHub access, Slack access, and everything. So the question occurred to people is that wouldn't it be easier if there was one standard that all AI assistant could use? And that is why MCP was created. So before MCP, every tool needed custom integration within the application. Suppose you have like without MCP, ChatGPT needs 4 integrations, Claude needs 4, Cursor needs 4, internal assistant needs 4, and then if you are building 5 AI applications, that makes it up like 20 integrations. And not just this, if on some day GitHub decides to change its API, then every integration of GitHub needs to be updated manually. So that was hard to maintain, expensive, no standard exists. This is exactly the problem that MCP solves. Now, what is exactly MCP? MCP, Model Context Protocol, is an open standard that allows AI models to communicate with the external tools, external data sources, and applications using one common protocol. It was created by Anthropic, the company that provided Claude, and you can understand it like before USB-C, the phone charging needs like every other phone needed USB-B, USB-A, and like the गोल वाले जो पिन होते थे, सबके हर एक फ़ोन के अलग अलग पिन्स होते थे चार्ज करने के लिए. फिर बाद में एक USB-C एक स्टैंडर्ड बन के आया जो कि किसी भी फ़ोन में लगेगा एंड फिर वो चार्ज होने लगेंगे. तो USB-C एक स्टैंडर्ड था फ़ोन को चार्ज करने का. ऐसे ही MCP standardizes AI tool integration. Every tool that needs to be integrated with your AI application, MCP defines a way to integrate it. So instead of building integrations for every AI, you can build one MCP server and every client can later use it. So next we can understand MCP architecture, like how everything works. First of all comes MCP host. So MCP host is like the application itself. Suppose Claude desktop application. It decides whether to call MCP, whether not to call MCP. So that is the MCP host application itself. It manages everything. Then comes the MCP client. The MCP client lives inside the host. When the host decides to call MCP client activates, and its responsibilities are to connect to the server, sends request, receive response, and converts AI call into MCP calls. Then comes MCP server. MCP server is where all the tools exactly lives. MCP client calls MCP server to get the access of the tools which require our problem to get solved. The tools are like read file, write file. These are all the custom tools that we can define in a way that solves our problem. And then there are GitHub server tools like create issue, merge PR, read repo. Then there are database like execute this particular SQL query, list tables. These are all the example of the tools that lives inside an MCP server. Each server exposes capabilities. Now there are 3 fundamental concepts that we need to understand MCP. First one is tools, like how I told, these are the executable functions. These can be execute SQL, send email, these are the particular functions that could be called. LLM, the LLM that lives inside our AI application decides when to call which tool. That is there. And then there are resources. Resources are the read-only information that provides context to our model. Resources could be like employee handbook, database schema, PDFs, logs, markdown files. These are all the read-only information. And then there are prompts. Rather than writing prompts for every particular AI applications, we can design a prompt template and expose them through the MCP server to our AI applications. Rather than rewriting the prompts for every application, we can just create one prompt template and expose them to our our applications through MCP server. So these are the three fundamental things. And then this is the interesting one. So also we ask this in each of our interview to understand if a candidate says that they know about MCP. So we ask this particular question to understand whether they actually know about it or not. Most of the candidates could not answer this, like they're not able to answer this. So the scenario is like, suppose a user asks a query to show me all the employees that got hired after 2024. This is the user query. User asks this to Claude. Claude is our application. Claude is our host in this case. Now Claude thinks that, oh, I need database access for this, and then Claude calls the MCP client. MCP client receives the MCP client sends the request, and then the database MCP server receives that request and run the desired SQL queries according to, like, the query was to show 20 employees got hired after 2024. So SQL queries according to that will run, and then it returns the result to our Claude, and then Claude explains those results. This is how the LLM never directly access the database, which is a very important thing, because MCP, like the LLMs, comes with the hallucinations. So it deals with the hallucinations and solves the security risks also, because we just can't provide LLM directly the access to the database. It can do various things. Everything goes through the MCP. There is no direct call. Now coming on to the benefits of MCP, one is the standardization. Everyone loves standards. So one protocol and it works everywhere. Reusability, you can build things once and then you can reuse it anywhere you want. Security, server controls access, like the MCP server that we define, it can provide the restricted access to the tools that only the user needs. Like if there are some tools that we don't want user to give, then MCP server can restrict those tools and only provides access of some tools. This is how we can solve the security, and LLM cannot do anything outside those exposed tools. And then there is scalability. Suppose right now we have only 12 tools in our bucket, in our catalog. Later we have 30 tools, later we have 100 tools. So rather than creating everything on our own and updating it manually, we can just add a new tool without modifying our AI applications. That is how MCP works. And then, so APIs, just like how APIs are the standard way with which application talks to other applications, MCP is a standard way where AI applications talks to the tools and tools talk to the our AI applications. And as the AI agents become more common, MCP is likely to become one of the foundational standards for communicating models with real world applications. That was my session. Thank you.